two entitled old Karens demand that I move my table so that they can sit there instead of me, complaining that the other tables were in the sun. And despite the fact that I had my schoolwork all laid out on this table and that I'd been there for almost an hour, these two Karens were refusing to take no for an answer, resulting in me having to shut them down right then and there. Here's what happened. So this happened earlier today and I still can't believe it. I had an exam at my university, but before that, I had a class that left me with about 2.5 hours of free time. So I decided to head to a coffee shop nearby to do some last-minute studying. It's a spot where a lot of students go to study with their laptops, and usually you don't really see anyone there over 30 since it's literally right across my university. The weather was nice, so I decided to sit outside. It was around 1:30 p.m., so the place was pretty empty. Plenty of open tables both outside and inside. I ordered my coffee and started studying my notes spread out. And about 45 minutes later, I noticed two older women, probably around 75 to 78 years old, looking at me and glancing around the coffee shop. It was a bit odd, but I didn't think much of it at first. They sat down at a table, but then they got up and started walking towards me, which felt even weirder. I figured maybe they wanted an extra chair for my table, but no. They came up to me and asked if they could sit at my table. Now, I was confused and told them that there were plenty of empty tables around, including one right next to mine. But they said to me, "No, we want to sit at this table because the other tables are in the sun, and we don't want to sit there." And it really took me a second to process this. Were they really expecting me to move so they could have my table? Especially while I was clearly studying with my notes and everything laid out? I told them again that there were plenty of other tables available, and that I didn't understand why they wanted mine. But they kept insisting, can we sit here? And at this point, I wasn't sure if they wanted to sit with me, or if they expected me to leave. But either way, I said, "No, you can't." And then I went back to my work. Well, when I said that, they looked so offended, as if I had somehow personally insulted them. After that, they went to the waitress and started complaining about the situation. But obviously, there wasn't much the waitress could do. Eventually, they ended up leaving the cafe clearly annoyed. And this is by far, honestly, one of the most entitled experiences from an old person I've ever had in my life. Yeah, that's super weird in my opinion. You don't go up to someone who's clearly established at a table and be like, "Okay, we want your table. Can we sit here instead of you? The other table's in the sun. We don't want to deal with that." It's like, I'm sorry, but I got here first. That's the way these things go. Like, I took the time to snag this spot, so I absolutely should be entitled to it. And it's not like you're about to get up anytime soon either. You had 2.5 hours to study, and this is, relatively speaking, a quiet place to study on campus. So for these two old people to be like, "Yeah, you gotta move, I want to sit there," like, that's super weird and just super entitled. And they should not have treated you like that because you definitely did not deserve it. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not using my trust fund to save my best friend from becoming homeless? Because right now she's facing eviction, and after I said no, that I won't pay for her rent, she called me stingy and selfish, saying that her siblings are gonna be homeless and it's gonna be my fault. Here's what happened. So in my country, every kid automatically gets a trust fund from the government that they receive when they turn 18, and the amount depends on how much the parents contribute to it, with most people getting around $1,000 to $2,000. My best friend received her trust fund back in April and got nearly $2,000 in total. She was really generous and decided to treat our entire friend group to dinner at an expensive restaurant. She also bought us multiple gifts, including giving me a paintbrush set, a book, a ring, some lip balm, and a scented candle. We all thought this was super sweet of her, and we were extremely grateful. A month later, I also received my trust fund on my 18th birthday, and it turns out that my parents had saved up nearly $20,000. I knew they had been saving up money for me, but I didn't realize it was this much. So I decided to learn from my friends' actions, and I took everyone out for brunch and I bought them each jewelry. Not long after that, my friend's family went through financial troubles. My friend used what was remaining of her trust fund to help out her family, but it wasn't enough. They're currently facing eviction if they don't pay the rent. And my friend reached out to me last week asking me for help and was practically begging me for over $100. Now, I feel bad, but I refused. I'm going to university very soon and I need that money. Buying gifts is one thing, but paying her rent might make her dependent on me, and she might continue asking me for rent money because I agreed one time. Well, when I said no, my friend was really upset with me, calling me selfish. She said that it's not like I need that much money anyways, since my parents would be paying for my university fees and my accommodation fees. Meanwhile, she has to take out student loans and get 2 jobs. She has 2 younger siblings ages 6 and 10, and she called me stingy for allowing them to be homeless, even though I have more than enough to help. I felt guilty, but I told her it's not my my responsibility to take care of her family. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you're definitely not the jerk. Your friend is trying to use her younger siblings against you to try and be like, wow, you're gonna let them go homeless? And it's like, no, I'm not allowing anything. You're the one that can't pay for it. You are not to blame, all because they need money for rent. And honestly, if they really are like on the verge of homelessness, I would just give them the $100 and be like, okay, here you go, but I can't help you from here on out. Like, obviously, if you have the money, you should totally help out. But I totally understand your reasoning of being like, sorry, I can't help you. And also, the way that she bit your hand and basically treated you like garbage, all because you said no, you're not gonna help her out, like that, in my opinion, really stands out as like a manipulation tactic, especially when she's trying to be like, oh, think of the children. But it's like, seriously, why would you throw that at my doorstep and then try to blame me if you can't pay your rent? Like, why would you let it get to that point and then try to pretend like this is my fault all because you didn't plan properly, and then call the person that would help you out stingy when they're like, no, I can't help you out with this? Like, that's not only incredibly backwards, but it also makes me think that maybe they're not being completely honest. I don't know, maybe they are being honest, but it definitely seems like they're trying to trick you into getting some money. So no, I don't think you're the jerk for keeping that money in your trust fund, because that's meant for college. And in my opinion, that's exactly where it should go towards. My wife is constantly complaining about work and life, and is always being short with me and very rude. And now I'm questioning if she might be acting entitled, because right now I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I've been thinking about this topic for a long time now, but as always, it's hard to find an answer without some other opinions. So if anyone here wants to weigh in to help me out, please feel more than welcome to do so. Now on to the actual case. I've been married to my current wife for almost 3 years, and overall it's great. We have our ups and downs just like everybody else, but we've always worked our problems out. However, there are some things my wife does that hurt me deeply, and she knows it but still does it. Firstly, she's always offended when I try to have some social life with a circle of friends from work. According to her, we never do things together, and it seems that I prefer to go out with friends rather than with her. Now, I would agree with her if it wasn't the fact that she refuses to go out whenever I ask her. She's always exhausted from work because she hates her current job, and it puts her on a frantic routine. That means I would never go out if I couldn't go with my friends. I understand how tired she constantly is and how lonely she may feel, but I wonder if there's any entitlement to complain about going out if she never feels like doing that. Secondly, she's always pissed at me for the pettiest of reasons. For example, last night we went to a comedy show that she really wanted to go to and got pissed off because when the show ended, I asked her out to have dinner, and why not just have some drinks as well? But I didn't know already where to go. After not even 5 minutes, she was already extremely annoyed and saying, let's just go home. Eventually, I found a place for us to go out, but from the moment that she felt annoyed on, she was always on the phone and almost never even looked at me in the eyes. Thirdly, she complains a lot. Sometimes she even belittles me when she has the chance. For example, her period started this last night, and today she told me, if you were feeling the pain that I'm under right now, you wouldn't even stand up. And I get that she feels a lot of pain during those times, and it makes her feel like crap, but it offends me because she's the one that constantly complains about pain and tiredness. I never complain about those things, especially because I don't feel I have a space at home to do so, and in the end, I just suck up all the pain that I feel. I never tell her when I have migraines, even though I have chronic migraines all the time, and I know how painful those can strike. Adding to the previous point, she also constantly complains to me about her co-working friends as if they're living their lives wrong. There's this woman that broke up her relationship recently, and all she wants to do is go out and drink, and my wife always comments to me how she's not well for doing this, and that she should seek therapy. At those moments, I'm always thinking to myself, let that woman live her life. That is her way of dealing with everything that she's going through. And when I don't agree with my wife, I'm the inconsiderate one that doesn't create a safe space for her. Fourth, and I promise this is the final point, she wants to receive lots of love without giving me anything. If I get a mere pat on the head or a scratch in my beard, that's a day that she gave me a lot. On the other hand, I have to constantly spoil her, whether I feed her, cuddle with her until she's hot and dismisses me, or give her massages. Literally, she asked me to massage her calves every single day at least twice. Now, I hope I was able to describe everything as impartial as possible, because I'm really struggling to find out if that behavior is entitlement or not. But you know what? It strikes a doubt in me when I feel she should say I'm sorry and just doesn't. That's something I almost never hear, and thinking about it sometimes makes me feel very hurt. So I'm honestly not sure if she's being entitled or not, because at this point, I really don't know what to do. Okay, I gotta be completely honest, it doesn't sound like your wife is being entitled, but instead, it kinda sounds like she's depressed. I'm not a doctor and I'm not trying to diagnose her, but it sounds like she is not in a good place, and it kinda makes sense why she would be like really short with you and tired all the time, and just overall really frustrated with life. life. You've described a lot of things that I've personally experienced in my own life, where I hate my job, I'm in pain, and I just don't like what's going on in life. And this feels super similar. And on that note, the original poster actually did clarify that yes, she is depressed. She has been apparently diagnosed by her therapist, so it sounds like that's at least a good step in the right direction, because what you described does not sound good for either of you, and I really hope this works out sooner than later. An entitled customer demands to get service outside of our work hours by practically begging me in the parking lot to help him before I leave. And even though I told him that we are quite literally closed as I'm locking up the store, this guy refused to take no for an answer. Here's what happened. So I don't know if my job counts as retail, as its main service is shipping packages for customers, but we do sell stuff as well, so I think it qualifies. I had just finished shutting down the computers and running end of day on the point of sale and was in the bathroom changing out of uniform when I heard someone try to open the locked door, but I don't think much of it and I just continued to change. The phone started ringing, but since it was after hours, I ignored it. After it went to voicemail, they called again, but still, since we're closed, I ignored it. Once I finished changing, I took my stuff up front and started to pull the gate out and sliding it into place. Well, the customer sees this and knocks on the window. I look at him and I shake my head and he goes back to his car. I finish locking up and leave the store, ensuring the door is locked one last time before leaving. Well, that's when the customer walks up to me. They then say, it says online that you're open until later. So I have to inform them that during the week we're open until that time, but on Saturdays we close early. Well, after I say that, he tries to argue again by saying, oh, it says otherwise online. But I just simply tell him that whatever website he got that from is completely wrong. He then looks at me and says, so you won't help me? And I just respond by saying nope, and then I walk off. But like seriously, the lights are off, the gate is shut, the door is locked, and the sole employee is leaving the building. How many more signs do you need to understand that we are closed? Also, don't come up and expect service from an employee who's clocked out, especially as I've locked up and I'm walking out at the end of the day. Man, when I work customer service, I could not stand that. Here you are locking up for the day and someone literally walks up right as you close and they're like, wait a second, you're supposed to be open. And the truth of the matter is that they know that the store's not open longer. They're the ones that messed up and didn't get there sooner, and now they have to face the consequences of not being there on time, while also simultaneously trying to make this your problem. And it's always the same attitude of entitlement, where they try to pretend like, oh man, this is such an injustice against me. Are you really not gonna help me out? Like, that's insanely entitled and so obnoxious. So good for you for standing your ground, because this guy was absolutely out of line. An entitled Karen and her kids make my life a living nightmare as their server, as she acted incredibly rude, was condescending, and refused to even give me a tip after making my life a living nightmare. Here's what happened. So we had a family of 5 come in 30 minutes before closing, and we didn't really care, as we still had a good amount of tables dining in still. I go to greet them and I'm mid-conversation asking how they are when the mom yells out that she wants all waters. I ask them if they have any questions over the menu, and the mom says that she's struggling between 2 of our plates. I let her know which one of those is a usual customer favorite, and then suddenly she replied with a super rude tone by saying, yeah, I know, I've ate here before. And I just thought to myself, well, okay then. Eventually they get the meals, and she tells me that everything looks like it was just slapped on together and there's no love in the food. So I just let her know that we can remake what she doesn't like, because honestly, it's just not worth the back and forth. I bring her a new meal, and she leaves it alone but keeps complaining to me about how it wasn't okay. I just apologize, because at this point, I just want them to eat and go home. They all ordered milkshakes, and when I brought them out, she joked by saying the milkshakes were free because I took more than 5 minutes to make 5 milkshakes. And again, I'm just thinking to myself, yeah, whatever. They then proceeded to pay, and they immediately put no tip on the tip options, to which at that point, I was just getting fed up. Meanwhile, they pay, and her kid is running around the restaurant with her milkshake, and all of a sudden, we see her kid drop the milkshake all over the floor. I walk by, and guess what? They just laugh. Not even say sorry or anything like that. They just laughed at the mess they made, and then they left. And honestly, I hope they never come back, because they were an absolute nightmare. Yeah, I can't stand customers like this, because they really just don't care. They're not going to tip you, nothing ever is going to be good enough for them, and any mistake that anybody makes is going to be your fault, even if you didn't do it. And the first meal that she got is a perfect example of that. Oh, it was slapped together, there was no love in this food. And it's like, yeah, there's no love in the food because you came in 30 minutes before closing, and you've been short with me and rude and given me an attitude since like the second you walked in. So yes, I totally understand where the original poster's coming from, because this kind of customer is honestly so annoying to deal with. My mom is constantly criticizing my behavior while refusing to ever listen to anything I ever have to say about her. And now, after enduring this my entire life, I'm honestly at my breaking point and I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. To start start things out, my mother and I have been through a lot. We've had multiple phases of our relationship being rocky, and this year it's only been getting worse and worse. The beginning of the summer, I gave her an ultimatum. If we are not able to work through all of this on our own, we need a therapist, and the boundary that she's not allowed to say things that invalidate my experience, such as I never did that or that didn't happen. Yesterday, my mom does one of those things that she does, where she says, I'm gonna tell you something that you probably won't like to hear. And this time, it's a familiar one. She said to me, I feel like you don't care about contributing to the household because you won't give me your school grant money that's left over after your tuition is paid. And when she said this, I just shut up, because we've had this conversation 5 times. It's not worth me telling her the same things I always tell her just for a fight to break out. So I leave it and I walk away. Then, less than an hour later, she's like, I have something else I want to say. And at that point, I just tell her no. I tell her I don't want to talk. I don't want to repeat the same conversations that we've had. But she always pushes me and I just blow up a little. She expresses that she thinks that she's had an epiphany as to why she's feeling the way she does. And I just say, okay, I'm sorry that I blew up. Let me just calm down for a minute. We go on to have a fairly productive conversation until I apparently trigger her. Now, I use the word trigger loosely, and it's not because I don't think triggers are real or any of that stuff, but rather because this particular trigger is any description of her behavior as being negative. In fact, there are several words that are banned because of this trigger, and we're talking words like yell, shout, scream, snap, snarl, gripe, complain, criticize, raise your voice, nasty, mean, loud, tense, angry. I mean, you name it, it's pretty much banned. We were having a productive conversation about appreciation and the ability to show it. She was talking about how she wishes I would do work in front of her or talk to her about how she looks tired, etc. And I was expressing the fact that I taught myself to never do these things because some of the times it's the wrong thing to do, and then she screams at me. And obviously I didn't say that because I was dancing around her supposed trigger words, but I think you catch my drift. I believe my exact sentence was that you can have a negative reaction, snap or yell at me, or just be upset. Her reaction to this trigger is always resorting to dismissing what I'm telling her and telling me that it didn't happen. She then said to me, this is really hard for me to hear from you right now because I haven't yelled at you for years. Now, we had a fight at the beginning of the summer that led to me giving her that ultimatum about finding a therapist, in which I finally managed to meet all of her requirements of me regulating my behavior and walked away appropriately, even though she was screaming like crazy at me from the kitchen as I was going down the stairs. So I just walked away, which is something I told her I would do every time she invalidates my experience. And in fact, we didn't talk for the rest of that day. Today, people are sleeping in, and I see on my phone that she had to go out at 2 o'clock in the morning to help a family friend. So I take care of the dogs. Now, while I'm finishing up my breakfast in the kitchen, suddenly everyone in the household is present. My mother says thank you for feeding the dogs, and I want to be nasty to her. I'm frustrated about the day before, and I'm angry at her. And I'm resentful that she can go about her way to help this random kid, but she doesn't care enough about our relationship to manage her own triggers. So I don't say anything. I ignore her and I take my food and then I just leave. I don't trust myself enough in that moment to say anything nice, so I don't say anything. Now, not immediately, but within the next 5 minutes, she comes down to my room and asks me if I'm not speaking to her. And I say, no, I'm not. She then says, well, why not? And I respond by saying that I'm feeling angry right now. Well, apparently this is unacceptable to her. She's then telling me, well, why could you possibly be angry? It went so well. Everyone did great. Meanwhile, she's standing in my doorway, trapping me in my room and trapping me in this conversation, demanding an explanation for why I feel the way I'm feeling and why I chose not to engage with her. I did my best to stay as calm as I could and communicate clearly about what I was feeling and why, but nothing I said was acceptable to her. It wasn't okay that I felt angry because of her actions. It wasn't okay that I felt frustrated that she's unable to even try to manage her own triggers. It wasn't okay that I'm upset that I'm always the one who has to remove myself from the situation. And she's standing there glaring at me, asking me to calm down. I have no way to walk away. She has trapped me in my room in this conversation and is repeatedly telling me that nothing happened. And I have to scream at her that she needs to leave in order to get her out of my doorway and get out of this conversation. She's allowed to tell me anytime that I'm too loud, or I sound angry, or that I'm shouting, or I'm screaming, or anything. And she's even allowed to tell me that I'm invalidating her feelings anytime she wants to, or that I need to calm down or walk away. But she never walks away. She never manages her triggers, or even treats me with the baseline respect of assuming that I'm not lying to make her look bad. I'm just so sick of this. She thinks she's entitled to my emotional support of her at any point in time, without regards of what I'm thinking or feeling, and she's entitled to say whatever she wants about my behavior. here. But if I criticize her, I'm the bad guy and nothing happened. She never apologizes for her behavior, she never makes amends, and she never changes her behavior. She thinks she's entitled to my constant improvement without putting any effort into our relationship. I wish to God that I didn't have to live here. My life is the best it's been in a long time, and she seems set on making sure that the beginning of my semester is a nightmare. I am so close to being able to take an actual career and actually break free of this garbage. I'm about to get a goal I've been working for so long to reach. She doesn't see that she's burning these bridges between us by refusing to even try and improve our relationship. Because right now I'm extremely frustrated, and at this point I really don't know what to do. Okay, I'm gonna say this bluntly, but I really think that your mom's a narcissist. Like, she is absolutely hitting all the marks, in my head at least, of someone who is clearly trying to manipulate you and treat you like garbage. Like, my God, if I was in your shoes, I would be moving out yesterday. Like, there's no way I would want to live with that. Clearly, you're a way better person than me because you're at least trying to make this relationship work, but man, this sounds like a rough one. So seriously, I really hope you're able to get out of there sooner than later because your mom sounds like an absolute jerk. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.